Hey, future CPAs, ever feel like business is just a giant, high-stakes game? Well, it kinda is. And corporate law? That's your official rulebook. If you want to absolutely crush the LCPA, you've got to master this rulebook, especially the chapter on corporate powers. We're talking about what a corporation can legally do, from its basic moves all the way to its game-changing ultimate abilities. So get ready, let's get into it.
Here's the game map for our session today. We'll start with where corporations get their superpowers, then cover the everyday stuff and the board's big decisions. After that, we hit the boss level, when you have to call in the stockholders. We'll also talk about the penalty for breaking the rules and wrap it all up with a killer cheat sheet to lock this stuff in your brain for exam day.
All right, Section 1, a corporation's superpowers. So, let's start with the basics. A corporation can't just wake up and decide to do anything it wants. It needs permission, right? It needs what the law calls authority. But where does that authority actually come from?
Okay, so the law calls a corporation an artificial being. The best way to think about this, it's like a character in a video game. It has its own name, its own stats, its own legal identity, totally separate from you, the player. But here's the key. That character can only do what it's been programmed to do by the game developers, in this case, the law. Those programmed abilities, those are its corporate powers. Plain and simple. If it's not in the code, the corporation can't do it.
So these powers come from three main sources. First up, you've got express powers. These are literally written down black and white in the corporation code and in the company's own birth certificate. It's articles of incorporation. Next, you have implied powers. These are the well-duh powers, the things you obviously need to do to use your express powers. Like, if you have the power to run a bake shop, you have the implied power to buy flour. Makes sense, right? And finally, incidental powers. These are the passive abilities your character gets just for existing, like the power to live on forever.
Moving on to Section 2, the everyday powers. Think of these as the basic toolkit that the board of directors uses for all the day-to-day stuff. These are the standard issue abilities that every single corporate entity starts with.
And here they are. A corporation can go to court, it can live forever, which is a pretty big deal under the new code, by the way. It can have its own logo or seal, and it can manage its own internal rulebook, the bylaws. It can also, of course, buy and sell property, issue stocks, and even make some donations. This is the basic stuff that lets a company actually operate in the real world.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. Here it is, straight from the source, Section 35 of the Revised Corporation Code. Pro tip for the LECPA, get comfortable reading the actual law. Knowing where to find this stuff is a huge advantage. You can see all those powers we just talked about are right there. This is the OG source of corporate authority.
All right, Section 3, let's level up. We're moving beyond the everyday grind. The board of directors has some special moves, some bigger decisions that carry a lot more weight. But, and this is key, they can still make these calls on their own without bringing in the shareholders.
So let's look at a couple of these. First, a company can actually buy back its own stock. Kind of weird, right? But it can only do it for very specific reasons, and only if it has enough cash lying around in its unrestricted retained earnings. Second, the board can hire another company to manage the business. But here's the catch. The law puts a limit on it. These management contracts can't go longer than 5 years at a time. It's all about having guardrails in place.
And here we are, the boss level. These are the absolute biggest, most game-changing decisions a company can make. They're so important that the board of directors can't do it alone. They have to call for backup. They have to get approval from the true owners of the company, the stockholders.
First up, changing the company's lifespan. Yeah, that's a pretty big deal. The board can propose it, sure, but the final call? That goes to the owners. You need a 2/3 vote from the stockholders. Remember that number, 2/3. It's kind of the magic number for all these boss-level moves.
See the pattern? It continues right here. If you want to mess with the company's financial DNA, like increasing or decreasing the capital stock, it's the exact same process. A majority vote from the board, and then boom, that critical 2/3 approval from the stockholders. It totally makes sense, right? This protects the owners from having their slice of the pie get smaller without their say-so.
Now, what about the ultimate game over button, selling off the entire business? Or at least, almost all of it. Well, this is as big as it gets. So you guessed it, the law demands the highest level of approval. Majority vote of the board, followed by that super important 2/3 stockholder vote.
That 2/3 rule also pops up for major strategic pivots. Let's say a company that makes shoes wants to start investing in a totally different industry, like space travel. That's a pretty big change from its main purpose. The board can't just go on some risky side quest with the owner's money. They need permission first,
majority of the board, and ratification by 2/3 of the stockholders.
Okay, listen up because this is a huge one for all you future accountants. Dividends. Now, both cash and stock dividends come from the same pot, unrestricted retained earnings. But their approval process is totally different. For a cash dividend, the board just decides and that's it. Easy. But for a stock dividend, because you're actually changing the ownership structure by issuing more shares, you need that two-step process. Board approval plus that 2/3 stockholder vote. This is a classic exam question, so lock it in.
Okay, Section 5. So what happens if a corporation goes rogue? What if it does something it wasn't legally allowed to do? Well, that brings us to the penalty phase and a super important legal term you gotta know, ultra vires.
Ultra vires sounds fancy, but it's just Latin for beyond the powers. An ultra vires act is any move a corporation makes that's not in its programming. It's outside its express, implied, or incidental powers. It's like your game character trying to use an ability that hasn't been unlocked yet. The game just says, nope, can't do that.
Now, this is a key distinction for your exams, so pay close attention. The general rule is that these acts are voidable, not void. What's the diff? Well, void is like a corrupted save file. It's gone forever. You can't fix it. Voidable is like a glitch. It's invalid right now, but you might be able to patch it or fix it later. That's a huge difference.
The consequences can be anything from a simple fix to a total corporate meltdown. For a lot of things, the stockholders can just vote to ratify the act, which basically makes it okay after the fact. But if the act was illegal or just plain wrong, you can't ratify it. The state could even step in and shut the company down. And the directors who made the call, they could be held personally liable. Yikes.
We have covered so much ground. So now, let's get to the best part. We're going to distill all of this into a high-yield cheat sheet that's designed to help you own this topic on the LECPA. So get your phones out, get ready to screenshot the next slide.
This table right here is pure gold. It lays out all the voting requirements you need to know. Just look at that pattern. That 2/3 stockholder vote is needed for almost every major move. The big exceptions to memorize? Cash dividends need 0 stockholder approval, and management contracts need a simple majority from both. Seriously, burn this image into your brain.
And to make it sick, here are your pro gamer study hacks. 1. The 2/3 rule is your go-to for most of those big boss-level changes. 2. Dividends are special. Stock needs the stockholders, cash doesn't. 3. If you're ever in doubt, the board of directors is the default decision maker. And 4. Ultra vires means voidable all. Think fixable, not fatal. Use these hacks to slice through exam questions.
Let's wrap up with the one sentence to rule them all. This quote from Section 2 of the Code is the core idea behind everything we just talked about. A corporation's power isn't limitless. It's given and defined by the law. If you get that, you've got the foundation for everything else.
So, I'll leave you with this. We've gone over the rulebook, but the real game is out there in the business world. As a future CPA, you're not just going to be a scorekeeper, you're going to be a strategic advisor. So how can knowing these rules, knowing exactly what a company can and can't do, turn you from just another player into an absolute MVP? Think about that. Thanks for tuning in.